he was only an infant. Whenever his parents showed zero interest in him, and he was left in the care of a nanny. Until he was 7 years old, his parents still showed very little interest in him and in his well-being. And at 7 years old, his nanny enrolled him into a school. And only a few short months later was he beaten, left with big black welts on his back for breaking school rules. And so because of this, he left school after his nanny unenrolled him, and he had no friends. And he again was shown zero importance from his mother and father. Then in his teen years, he was sent off to a boarding school. And while at this school, he decided to go into the military college. And so, being proud of his mindset, he wrote to his dad to really be excited and to really show how far he's going in his life. His dad wrote back and he said, "You are an embarrassment to me. Do not write me ever again." The son, very disheartened, he enrolled in military college anyways, in spite of being called an embarrassment and being very disappointed in his life. And at the military college, he did not do very well in his grades, and he finished the last in his class, and he wrote his dad again. And this whole time frame to say, "I'm at the college, and I'm really looking for your compassion." His dad wrote him, and what would be his final words to his son: "Do not write me ever again. You are a true disappointment to me and to your family." The mother, after all this transpired, after the father was now gone, after sharing those last words with the son, the mother still showed very little interest in him. The boy grew into a man, and he began to write. He became a Nobel Prize author. And he wrote under an alias that some believe was because of his abuse as a child. While he was not physically abused, he was emotionally abused. The man is a very unlikely hero of our story because he became a hero and winning a Nobel Prize, but he then went on to become one of the most successful leaders of our modern age. The boy, also now a man, was elected twice as the Prime Minister for England. And he was seen as a very strong-minded, stalwart type person who carried the Allies through World War II. The man is going down in history as being one of the most influential men of our modern age. The man is Sir Winston Churchill. We love stories about underdogs. We love stories about unlikely heroes. We love to watch movies about these things. We love to read books. We love to find that person in the crowd and encourage them on. We love to do that as a people. Did Jesus ever use any unlikely heroes for his parables? In Matthew 13, I want to look at two parables today that really deal with, in my opinion, an first one is found in verses 31 and 32. And the Bible reads this way. And the kingdom of heaven is like a man who had a mustard seed, and he went and sowed it into his field. And this mustard seed is least of all the seeds, but when it is grown, it becomes the greatest of all the herbs. And it's so great, in fact, that the birds come and nest in its branches. When you think about the kingdom of heaven, the church, Matthew 16:19, and you look at this little mustard seed. Now, mustard seed is around 1 to 2 millimeters in diameter, which equates to 0.039 to 0.079 inches. And this thing is really small. It's a yellowish white seed. And when you look at it, you notice how this man placed this in his own backyard. And you think about the church, how this really impacts the church. And you see how small things become great things. And you see how it's so important to plant seed wherever you go. And this man had great interest in putting it out of his own field. Now this parable is dealing with the church. The kingdom of heaven is like a man with a mustard seed who put it to his own field. The church, God does not do things as you and I do. We as people love to do things with grandeur and lots of parades and very festive. But God does things in a whole other way. In Matthew 18, let's just give you an example. There was a dispute among the disciples about who is the greatest. What does that matter for the church? Who is the greatest? That's what Christ said. And Christ brought out that little child. He says, except you be as this little child, who's the greatest? The humble. Well, that flies to the face of man. The law of belief says that if I believe something long enough, then that will eventually become my reality. And so if I believe that I'm great, it will eventually become my reality. But as for God, His way is perfect. The Lord's word is flawless. And His shield, His shield is a refuge to all those who come to Him. Psalm 18:30. You see, man may have a lot of different ideas, but God's way is always perfect. And so, when it comes to this parable, dealing with a small thing, as a mustard seed, the smallest, the least of the field, of all the herbs, of all the seed, the least of all the seeds. And then it sprouts, and it grows up to around 12 to 20 feet tall. Now, if you look at this, and you think about how the church started in its infancy, and how God always had a great plan for His church. You think about the prophets, and in particular Daniel, and how he prophesied, and he saw ahead so many years, several hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe even 1,000 years, depending on who you look at, or more. And he saw that statue of, gold and silver and brass and clay. And he saw that rock come out and destroy the statue, symbolizing the church. That's going to come out and overwhelm all the earthly kingdoms. And what did he say in Daniel 2:44? He said that this rock will break and shatter all that into pieces. All the world's kingdoms consume all nations. When it comes to the mustard seed, now it starts out small, but then it grows and grows. And how the church started out very small, and then it consumed all nations as God intended. Because whenever God has something to accomplish, it happens. Isaiah 55. When the church was formed and established in Acts 2, it began small with the apostles, and then the Lord added to the church daily as were being saved. Right after those 3,000 souls were saved that day. And then you see the book of Acts, how the church grew mightily, how the Word of God spread quickly, how a lot of great things are happening. And you see how it started out small, how it did not have any real festivities behind it. Yet in our mindset, we love greatness. But yet in God's eyes, He always knows what's best. And it comes to this mustard seed, He always is interested in the church flourishing. And you see how much it did. When it says that even the birds of the air would nest in its branches. That's pretty mighty to me. This branch is so big, and these leaves are so big, that the birds find shelter in this. This shows to me that the church, in addition to it being great, and it also is far-reaching, and it even takes care of even the littlest things in nature. Now, to me, this is showing us that the church is always meant to be a place of refuge. It's always meant to be a place where you come to find shelter from the storms of life and the storms of sin. And it's meant to be that stronghold, the pillar and ground of the truth, Paul says, 1 Timothy 3:15. And so you see, an unlikely hero of the story is this mustard seed that is likened to the kingdom of heaven. But then there's another unlikely hero found in the next verse, Matthew 13:33, which says the kingdom of heaven is like leaven, that a woman takes and hides in 3 measures until it is leavened. Now, leaven is that it's in the yeast, and it is that agent that kind of works that you really see with the naked eye. And you see its effects. You see the influence. You see how the church is always meant to do good. And you may not see it, but you know it's going on. And so when it comes to the church, when it comes to you and to me, you and I, that we really understand that we are responsible for our actions, for our influence. And you notice here in this parable, Matthew 13:33, and the yeast, and how it works and how it comes together at the end and it becomes a great thing. When all of God's people are living right, we are truly a city on a hill that cannot be hid. We are the ones who cannot hide our light under any kind of bushels or under baskets. Because our light should shine to all those in the house. What's it talking about? Our influence, who we are. And by them seeing the influence, by seeing how you and I live and what you and I do, they may glorify your Father who is in heaven. Now there is tremendous power in what you do, but also tremendous power in what you do not do. We do not get involved in sinful activities. We do not publicly go around and allow sin into our life. We do not allow even the appearances of evil to come before us. And so it's just as powerful what you do as what you do not do. And it comes to this leaven, how you see it's not really, it's working, but you don't really see it. The same thing goes on with our influence. It's still working. And you see the effects of it later, but at that moment, it's still kind of churning around. And both these parables, you see some comparisons. You see that both things accomplish great things, even though they're small. Even though you may not really see it working overnight, it still does work. It still is growing. And both these things are showing a great flourishing. You know, the Christian is the eternal optimist. We always look on the bright side of life. We always strive to allow God to be in charge. And when somebody sees me and sees you, they ought to be seeing Jesus. And when it comes to the church, now the church influences good in the world, and the church blesses every community that's in. But when you see how the church works and how you and I are positive influences inside the church, inside the community, that when it comes to who I am and who you are, you know, we show somebody the hands of Jesus by how we help somebody. We show the world the shoulders of Christ, how we bear each other's burdens. We show the world the feet of Jesus by how we run the opportunity to spread the gospel. We have the eyes of Jesus to see those things that are needed and to have compassion on those around us. And so when they see us, they ought to see somebody who is truly following Jesus. Both of these things, mustard seed and the leaven, are things that are of humble beginnings. You know, you and I are nobodies in the grand scheme of the world, but in God's eyes, we're somebody. But we're still normal. But yet, when we have God and we are serving God, then we begin to accomplish great feats together. And so when it comes to these parables, to me, this is really showing us about how wonderful it is to be inside the church. And just about how marvelous it is that God uses the smallest things to come to the grace of feats. How He uses you and I. And we are His tools if we are humble. For God exalts the humble, and He resists the proud and the arrogant. Today, is God being allowed to work, or are we stopping Him in all areas? Are we flourishing with God's help or on our own? These parables tell us eternal truths that we all have to understand and enjoy. This morning, you may be here and you may not be at this moment in time in fellowship with God. What a tragedy. Someone can leave here and know that they're not saved. That's a tragedy. But God is compassionate. And He wants you to come and be baptized, have your sins washed away, and to be brought in contact by the blood of Christ at this point in time. Romans 6:1-4. Maybe some here who may be currently discouraged, defeated, and you may have even been sinning yourself, and you want to come back to God. Again, God is so compassionate. Today is the day of your salvation. Today is the day that God will allow a small thing to become a great thing. Would that be you? So come now, stand and sing.